US troops have been attacked in Iraq. But not only that, here's the kicker. US civilians have been warned throughout the world to expect an attack of their own. So what is going on? You have US troops getting attacked. We'll get through that in a second. But you also have US civilians with a major warning from the State Department. All US civilians throughout the world have been warned to expect or to be careful to be targeted. And the State Department is quite clear. Due to our connection and our ally Israel, we could be attacked and viewed as a high-profile target to any sort of factions who would love to mess with a US citizen. Now, this is an extremely rare warning. I mean, we used to live in an age where a US citizen walks into a country and, oh my gosh, they're from the US. They must have a awesome life of freedom and they must make a lot of money. Times have changed. We don't live in that type of life anymore, so take this threat very serious if you are wanting to leave the United States and go on a nice family vacation. Now, as far as US bases getting attacked in Iraq, let me first answer the question that I know everyone's about to ask me. Why are we even in Iraq? Okay, I've been studying this for a very long time, even from when I was in the US Army back in 2014. No one has the same answer. The number one answer, like all roads lead to Rome, all roads lead to this answer: regional stability. But if you want a very specific answer, as far as today, most likely we don't want factions to overrun the country like they did back in 2014. I can't say the name of the faction because YouTube will take me down, but it starts with the letter I and ends with the letter S. And that small faction quite literally crumbled the entire Iraqi military. So because of that, most likely we are still in Iraq again because of regional stability. And because of this, there will always be the underlying threat of US troops getting attacked. So let's finally get to this. Now, the exact report, the location in Iraq, but two separate locations have been struck. The first one is Al-Assad base. Now, this base was hit with two separate one-way drones, meaning the drones are meant to hit you and never come back. So one of the drones were actually intercepted, yet the intercepted drone managed to cause some damage on equipment and some minor casualties on people. Now, when you say the word casualties, it can mean totally taken out or it can mean hurt. In this case, minor casualties meaning nobody was taken out. However, the Department of Defense has indicated that the troops are okay, and again, minor casualties, no one was severely hurt. The second location is Al-Ahir base. Now, there is not that much info on this base for some reason. There wasn't that many details on the attack other than it was a drone strike, one-way drone strike, but no casualties. They would have reported it if there were casualties. Okay, so if you are shocked that US military members are being attacked right now, you need to understand this. The threat is at its highest in a long time for all US service members in the Middle East. But again, also to include civilians. Let's not forget about civilians. When you have the country of Iran quite literally writing on Twitter, time is up and we will go ahead and intervene into Israel if Israel continues their campaign with Gaza, of course something is going to happen. Now, here's the thing. There was a small faction who claimed to do the attack. I'm not even going to say the name of the faction on here in fear of censorship. Nonetheless, though, Iran did not claim to this attack. When Iran is saying that they want to intervene and that they're going to hurt U.S. military members in Israel, it's not necessarily big country, big government Iran. It's these small proxy units who can operate however they want. Beyond the rules of war, hiding amongst their own people, doing very shady things where they know they can't face the U.S. military one-on-one. But guess what? That is how you beat the U.S. military. Now, I'll say this before and I'll say it again. A lot of times we love to hate on our modern military, like, oh, we have a bunch of softies, we have millennials running the military, but this is actually a different military than back in 2001 when the GWAT era started. This military now is preparing for drone warfare, preparing to fight a total insurgency. No longer are the days where you have one-on-one conflicts with big militaries. And so since our military has to now deal with these small proxy units, the way that the US military operates is so much different than how we used to operate in the Middle East. And again, the US military was able to intercept these drones. Now, this is a very secretive way and method and how it's done. The US military will never say how we do it. However, you do have things like drone radar guns, and you have a radar that can watch these drones or small pictures in the sky to make sure that they're catching these drones. Now, what we need to look for is how the US is actually going to respond to these threats, because already the US has called out Iraq and Syria that these countries will be targeted if small factions are running around freely and they have ties to Iran. More specifically, you actually had the US Navy with the Strike Carrier Group, the second one that came into Israel. Their job is to actually fend off or to deter these proxy units. Excuse my stutter, I get very passionate. Nonetheless, though, you have probably the biggest faction that's the biggest risk right now for Israel and the United States would be Hezbollah. Out of all the factions, they openly swear allegiance to Iran. Iran openly protects and openly works with Hezbollah like they have recently. Nonetheless, Hezbollah has not necessarily said that they will attack the United States, but when you look at the formation of Hezbollah and they put down the list of the countries that they despise, who do you think was on that list? The French and also the United States. The entire history of France can just never catch a break. Anyway, so the United States is dealing with this threat from all of these proxy units to include Hezbollah. Now, I also see a lot of people questioning, will the US actually strike Iran if things get really tense? I doubt it, but who's to say something might not happen? At this point, when you have an entire worldwide warning for US civilians, anything could happen, any sort of escalation, and these proxy units or lone wolf units would love to capitalize on this. Something else I must mention is that the United States does not look like or indicate that they want to get involved with Israel's war specifically, like boots on the ground. In fact, Biden, there was a story lied about him from the Israeli Times where Israeli Times said the U.S. will put boots on the ground and get involved in this war if Hezbollah attacks. Well, Hezbollah has always been attacking, and the United States has always been trying to contain the attacks, especially within Syria, way before this conflict. So that is entirely false. However, conflicting reports, because I know your tinfoil hats are going off, the U.S. military is technically already boots on the ground within Gaza, helping out with the Iron Dome, U.S. Special Operations, but what Biden is implying is big professional military like your average infantry soldiers, etc. Israel has already indicated that they don't need ground troops help. They don't need that. They have one of the best special forces in the world. They have a great armored unit, one of the best air forces in the world. What they need is just munitions and more help from the outside. One of the biggest speculations as to why Israel has not invaded Gaza yet, which is a good thing in my opinion, we want this all to end, is that they are still dealing with legitimate threats from the north with Hezbollah. More and more footage is coming out of Hezbollah striking units and also flooding radar systems throughout all of Israel. And with Israel already having to deal with a 4-dimension war, looking up in the air, looking over to the sea, looking in front of them, and looking underground, how could they focus on Gaza and Hamas, who's still firing rockets back to Israel, when you have Hezbollah and other proxy units who are just waiting to attack? So I know this video is about U.S. troops and them getting attacked and U.S. civilians. However, all of these implications of Israel continuing their campaign affect the United States directly. That is what Hezbollah is saying. That is what Iran is saying. So these are the things to look out for in the Middle East. A lot of misinformation, even for myself, and I do this day in and day out, 24/7, looking for the proper resources. Al Jazeera has pretty much been banned in Israel, so a lot of the times you'll just get one side of the story. But then when you look into publications like the Israeli Times, they're also posting fake stories. So whenever you see a story pop up in this conflict, wait a few hours, maybe even a day. This is not like Russia-Ukraine where you have live access 24/7. Everything is relatively accurate, maybe. In this conflict, you have to wait. So make sure you're looking out for the misinformation. And another thing we do have to look out for is how the U.S. military is going to respond with these small attacks. The U.S. military is trying to be as covert as possible, and the last thing the U.S. wants is for these small outposts or air bases to be attacked. Because I know a lot of people have been questioning, why are we still in Iraq? I forgot we were still there. We are all over the Middle East. And again, it's all for regional stability, but if I gotta be honest with you, the stability is getting worse and worse. So as we add and flood more troops into the Middle East, whether boots on the ground, whether air assets or boat assets, it looks like an escalation of force. And of course, this is going to instigate proxy units to want to attack U.S. military members even more.